Hivers. It's me again, Melissa, welcoming you to the solace and the sanctuary of a hive. And just to make sure that you feel welcome and you feel safe and you feel heard, this is a place where you can feel at rest. So I've started this series on tea, tarot and tales because I really wanted you guys to understand that there is so much more to actually just apply to life when you do simple tarot readings. It doesn't have to be, deep, dark, woo-woo stuff. It doesn't have to be, all dark and mysterious and feeling like you're going into the deepest depths of witchcraft. This like tarot goes back to like the 1500s. This is a way that people use symbology because their subconscious actually recognises symbols rather than words. So you have a lot of people back then that couldn't even read, they couldn't write, and this is the way that a lot of people got direction, confirmation, and simply just guidance. When people were actually able to ask questions, they were able to actually receive their answers. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to embark on the actual reading today, and I'm going to be using the B Tarot deck, and you will see this lovely deck that I've got of the B Tarot. I was going to say Torah because I've actually just bought Torah in the tarot cards, so yeah, I've got myself a little bit transfixed. Anyway, without further ado, we're going to start doing. We just want to know what energy we're sitting in today, and I will be reading from the book as I did last week, and I just want you to know that whatever is coming up here for you. Oh wow, we've even got jumpers already. Just so that you know, and then I will tell you a little experience that I've had according to the reading, because I just want you to know how relatable it is. This is something that could be really easily, picked up and just allowed you to have a bit of a signpost in your life. Here we go again, another jumper. Wow. So we have the Princess of Pentacles, we have the Emperor, and we have the Two of Swords. So let's have a look at what all these mean. Princess of Pentacles is from the Earth suit. And Earth basically means everything in your environment, everything in your income, your worldly living status, how you connect with your environment. So it says, in the depth of winter, the hive is quiet, gathered into a tight ball to maintain heat. Oh, what am I doing? That's 2. I already got myself stuck on 2. Okay, sorry, Princess. Oh, that's just not right. Okay, hang on a sec. Yes, in this suit we see the princess as the honeybee, and who is foraging on a thistle, one of her favourite plants. This is a new worker bee taking to her task for the very first time. She's keen, pragmatic, has an innocent curiosity about her, and is willing to work hard for the benefit of the hive. In traditional tarot associations, the Princess of Pentacles represents the Earth of Earth. This is the personality type that is very much grounded into the wonders of the apparent world. Consider what this means on a symbolic level. Earth is stable and strong, supporting and steadfast. Now think of that quality, but with even more added earth. So this can be the personality type that is somewhat slower and denser with her counterpart. She's attracted to many things, but may be demonstrating a density to her persona that prevents her from furthering her objectives. She can easily become bogged down by things and fall into overwhelm. Her enthusiasm, though, can be infectious. This is the perpetual student who is keen to learn and wants to learn as much as she possibly can in the shortest amount of time. So whilst diligent, excuse me while I just turn the page, she can be prone to the bouts of idleness and laziness, staying up late, sleeping in even later. When encouraged or having someone who is willing to be her mentor, she can be focused and apply her diligence in a productive manner. So when it's upright, it says this personality type is demonstrative of a person who needs guidance lest they fall into habitual patterns of inappropriate behaviour. So they are their own worst enemy, in other words. Unless they are guided or taught the right way in love and acceptance, An elder or teacher would greatly benefit them and guide their endeavours. Right, so that's a good start to the reading, hey? So number 4, which is the Emperor, Major Arcana. There's so much depth to this. It's so good. So good. Where are we? The Emperor. Man with a beard full of bees. So this is a representation of the Divine Father in a guise of triplicity. 3 ancient European fathers directly related to the sacred bee and embodied in one majestic individual whose beard is a swarm of bees. Where the Empress represents the goddess and the sacred mysteries expressed by the bees, in the Emperor we see how those mysteries are made practical in the function of the apiculture, or the keeping of bees. The first deity in this triplicity is that of Melissus, whose name literally translates, I can't even speak today, translate to mean bee man or honey man. He is the mythological father of the nymphs, who nurse the infant Zeus with honey. The second is the god of Aristaeus, the son of Apollo, who is worshipped as the giver of gifts and the guardian and protector of bees. Aristaeus offended a caste of nymphs and as a consequence had his bees die. Various accounts told by Virgil and Ovid recall how Aristaeus ritually killed an ox, at which point its soul passed into a new swarm of bees that rose from its decomposing body. He subsequently became acknowledged as the first beekeeper. He was not alone in this title, because Dionysus is often accredited with being the god of the vine, and his worship can be found in the days before viniculture. Dionysus is connected to mead, the sweet honey wine, summer in a bottle. He shares this birth with that similar to Zeus, where he was fed on honey. But it is his ancient role as the beekeeper and teacher of the craft of humankind that connects him to Aristaeus. The Emperor is the animus, the spirit, the perfectly developed masculine principle. In these 3 ancient gods, we can perceive the practical human relationship with the bees, taking shape and form. The Emperor provides a structure through teaching and experience. In so doing, he represents wisdom, control, and strength born of sacred relationship. So this is about taking time to lead and take control of the situation. Think and act using your logic and rationality. Someone must take control. It may as well be you. Reliant on your own strengths of organisation, but do not fear conflict. It is sometimes necessary. Wow. It's a very powerful card, that one. And 2 of Swords. So let's have a look at 2 of Swords. Where are we? Here we go. 2 of Swords. The 2s concern themselves with potential relationships and the coming together of various factors or ideas. In Wands, we saw how this was reflected through passion and creativity. In Jars, it was an emotional aspect that was important, but here it is the power of thought that can be one's worst enemy. It may be that a person is acting from a place of fear, or of the unknown or great change, or that the status quo is just safer. It may be that there is sufficient information available that the querent can make what they feel is the right choice. When faced with a multitude of directions and choices, we require clarity in order to make calculated decisions. This person is in a position where they just cannot see the forest for the trees. Their worries are creating enormous difficulties for them, and fear has reduced them to indecision. Notice how the bees are flitting about the person. These represent the hundreds of conflicting thoughts that are confounding the situation, but they can also guide the individual to clarity of mind, if they would only trust in themselves. The swords this person holds in their hands are not ones of defense. Instead, they represent the sharp edges of the mind and the perplexity of the indecision. There are a number of routes that open to this person, and they may each have their own appeal, but they cannot seem to make a decision and choose one path over the other. The blindfold that hinders their vision is another object of their own doing, and may indicate that they are reluctant to make a decision for fear of great change. So that is really huge. Now, the tale I wanted to share with you today about this, the Princess of Pentacles, the Emperor, and the Two of Swords, is actually one of my son. Now, that he was in a situation where he was actually offered a job. He's very new, well, reasonably experienced in being a barista, and he was invited to take a position at a local cafe, and he was very enthusiastic. He was really wanting to do more with his position, and he was offered quite a good salary to do this. So when he got to this position in this local cafe, it was newly bought over by this couple, and he was pretty much launched into, quickly trained up by the young girl that was actually there at the time. Now, a lot of situations that happened leading up into that point, he had very bad situations with other cafes that he'd worked at without the lack of training. But he'd worked enough through that he'd actually become quite confident in his ability to make coffee. So anyway, the situation arose, this position came up, it was a brand new takeover of a coffee shop, and he was going to be potentially manager. He was trained up by this young girl, as I said, and we started incorporating, I was doing a gluten-free, grain-free business at the time. I was helping supply the shops with the cakes and the biscuits, etc., etc. And it got to the point where the young girl was there less and less, and my son was there more and more. Now, this was still newly established. Even though it had been a coffee shop before, it was struggling, and it was taken over by a chain that were in the local area. The problem was, when it was sold out from the chain, this gentleman that took over had another business in a completely different trade, and he also had a new baby. Now, there were so many situations that he was struggling to maintain, and it was also in a different town than his other business. So he was struggling to maintain that position as well as run a coffee shop on the side. So he was expecting Daniel to be pretty much raised up and taken over this situation to be manager and build this up. Problem was, there was virtually no money in it to market it properly and really build up the following, and it was not really helpful with the person who owned the company that didn't have any experience in running coffee shops. So Daniel pretty much stood up and took over and tried to build it up as best he could. Problem was, he was faced with an onslaught of situations that he really didn't know how to deal with, because he didn't have the training and he wasn't offered the training. He was expected to sink or swim. So in a situation where he had the enthusiasm of the Princess of Pentacles, he was really keen about his craft, but he needed that training to establish his authority in the business and his ability to build. So he grabbed it anyway. He took the leap of faith, and he decided this is what he was going to do, this is how he was going to do it, and this is, as long as he got a bit of training, he felt he was confident and ready to do this. He also had a situation in another coffee shop of a big hotel in town, where he was asked to be supervisor. So obviously a lot of bosses were seeing leadership potential in him, but he was never offered the proper training. So he was always shoved in the deep end, expected to sink or swim. In the previous position, he was given the supervisory role at the age of 19. Yet he had a lot of conflict with the older staff because they didn't like to be run around by a 19-year-old. Now, that's not really fair if you don't have the training. He was literally shoved in the deep end and pushed into a corner. It was really quite inappropriate and pretty poor behaviour in regards to the leadership and the hotel owners. Anyway, moving right along, this current position that he was actually in, he had a situation where he was able to take this position, felt really good that he was going to be earning a good salary and was expecting good training, because the person that was there was very good in her ability to get the consistency in business. However, the income was just not there. So he felt very strongly that further on down the track, he should be able to build it up, and he was really working hard, and he was trying to do the social media side of things, he was trying to do everything else, but it got to the point where it was just too quiet, and he felt guilty, the fact that he was taking over this position where the income, he was being paid really good money, but his income was literally overwhelming the actual income of the business. He felt guilty, the fact that this gentleman was actually a brand new dad, and he had another business, and he was also funding the coffee shop from the other business. So it was a really difficult situation here. My son was really finding it very hard to make that decision, but he ended up by making the decision to leave, because it was just not fair on the owner, and it wasn't fair that he was taking the money out of the business. So he had to make the hard call of standing up for not only the welfare of the boss, but the welfare of his own conscience, to say that I can't do this to that person. I can't viably take an income knowing that it's taking food off their table, clothes off their back, just to fund me. So I find that a move of integrity and conscientiousness, that he can actually say that he would not take any more money out of this situation. It was better that he either shut the business down because it was just not doing well enough, and they didn't have the funds to actually market it properly. So in a situation that you actually struggle, even though you've got the potential ability, without that training, and without that ability to say, I need more training, I need that backup, I need that ability to learn how to do this properly, which is that emperor energy, then I'm going to be overwhelmed with having to make decisions that are not really mine to make, but I have to make the decisions anyway, because I'm in a position where I have to actually make them for other people, and just it's just too hard to do that by myself. So I hope that does a little bit more clarity. So if you have all the ability and the eagerness and the zeal to get involved in something that you're passionate about, make sure you put your boundaries down, and make sure that you ask for the help that you need, and the guidance and the teaching and the support, so that you're not left swindling in the mire of not being able to carry through with what you really want to do, because it leaves a bit of a bad taste in your mouth. My son's gone on to have a fantastic job in another little bakery in town, which is just so good. He gets on so well. He's getting the training that he's needed, and it's like he can pretty much run the shop down, because he's had so many experiences along the way, and he's so confident in what he does, and he makes a bloody good coffee, I can tell you that right now. However, had he not gone through that experience and not stood up for the right thing, and not stood up for his own boundaries, he would not have come to this position today where he was actually able to get that job. So if you're finding yourself in a position where you can't, or you've been offered a position, or you're wanting to follow through with a particular passion or project, but you don't know how to go about it, or you're finding that there's so much responsibility that you just don't have the right experience or the right training or whatever, stand up for yourself and ask for that training and demand it. You should not be in a situation where you have to put up with feeling overwhelmed because of other people demanding more of you than you are actually willing to or able to even offer. So does this make sense? I hope put in the comments down below if you're actually resonating with this, because this is something that a lot of people find themselves in. Even when my boys worked at McDonald's, there was quite a few situations, like McDonald's used to pride themselves on their training, their international class training, and depending on where you are, you can get like few and far between like experiences of really good to really, really bad. So it just depends on how, who's in control, who's willing to stand up for themselves, who's willing to have that, get that training and fight for that training and have that support to help you go further. If you're not finding that you're getting the right training, then you need to actually ask the right people or find a position that will give you that training, or that support. It doesn't even matter if it's a job. It could be even parenting. I remember when I was going through, I had 3 children under 3. I had twins first, boy-girl twins first, and then I had my third child, my son, later. And I ended up by going through, because having 3 under 3 in the age, I thought I was 33 when I had twins, so I was an older mother, and I found that I was just overwhelmed because I had a mother that was very absent, shall we say. She was not involved in our lives much at all. So I had to sink or swim when it came to my ability to mother. And having twins, I can tell you right now, it was a full-on job. If we have that ability to, have these kids, but nobody, there's so many books out there, but nobody actually fights with you in the trenches. Nobody knows what it's like at 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody knows what it's like to have 2 screaming babies. I remember at one point going to like the little 2-bedroom unit we lived in Sydney, curling up into a corner in the corner of the lounge, just hoping and praying that my husband was going to be home soon, because I couldn't handle the fact that these kids just would not stop crying. But and I know that all parents go through that, or to some degree or another. Anyway, I realise now that I reached out and had a lot of support from local community groups and things like that were actually, like, even local childhood nurses. I remember one lady said to me, in a childhood nurse, if they're crying, as long as they're in a safe position and you're not coping, feel free to put them into their cot and be able to walk away for a breath of fresh air. Because if you can know that they're safe and they're not able to harm themselves, then you can actually walk outside and have a breath of fresh air. So it's all about your boundaries, your ability to accept certain levels of responsibility. But if you don't have that ability to work through that, if you don't have that ability to know what to do in any given circumstances because you've never been there before, then reach out and help, ask for help. Reach out and say, look, I'm not quite sure what to do in this situation. I just don't understand the dynamics right now. Can you show me what to do? Because there is no shame in asking for help. There is no shame in asking to have that somebody to come alongside you and say, look, this is the way you do things. There is a procedure, or there is wisdom in just taking a break and taking a bit of fresh air and just to get your head clear. There's no reason for you not to ask for help. And there's always somebody for help. I remember when I had the kids, I think I just brought my younger son home. There was a service from the Benevolent Society that was pretty much rent a granny. And I would have this beautiful lady who would come over and play with the twins while I would bathe my youngest, or she would come and play with the kids or change the nappies or whatever, or just sit with the kids so I could have a sleep. There were so many things that she was able to do. She was, if I was breastfeeding or something, she'd be able to put on a cup of tea or just be there for social outlet. Because when you've got 3 under 3 and you can't get out of the house, it's very isolating. It's very, very isolating. So even that mental ability to connect with another human adult, not just hear babies all the time. And I'm the biggest, I love babies. I'm just don't get me started on babies. I adore them. However, sometimes you just need that adult connection, because you're sinking emotionally. And if you're giving out to all these little babies, you know, during the day and nobody's giving back to you, you need to ask for that help. You need to say, hey, I need a break. I need that ability to just stop and recalibrate and just say it's okay. And that gets down to grounding too. Sometimes you just got to go get out there and just connect with nature, because all this overwhelm and all this responsibility and life is going so fast these days that we just can't get further forward without taking that step aside to say, I can't do this at the pace that I'm doing it. I can't maintain that. I can't sustain it. So I need to be able to look after me first before pursuing the next step. Or because I keep saying to my kids, you need to captain your own ship, and you can't save anybody with a sinking ship, or from a sinking ship, should I say. So if you're sinking, you need to plug up your own holes before you start helping anybody else, and you need to make decisions for yourself, even if it may cause conflict, like that Emperor card said. So I hope that little bit is a bit of an insight of how that whole tarot can actually apply to daily life. This is not something that, you know, has to have these woo-woo spiritual things. It can be completely practical. It literally can be a guidepost, just drawing one card a day. Like this morning I did a card reading for myself, right? And I've got this beautiful Inner Temple Oracle deck by Rebecca Campbell, and this is fabulous because it comes in a with a temple card deck, and it actually pops up like that for when you actually draw a card for the day. And my card for today was the Ceremony of Life, and pretty much learning to dance again. And when I was growing up, I did probably 12, 15 years worth of dancing. Absolutely adored it, absolutely loved it. However, through life and changes and multiple house moves and things like that, I lost the ability to dance. And now I'm going to go down the track of just looking at myself and saying, this is what's going to fill my cup. This is what's going to block those holes that is making my ship sink. This is going to be something for me that I can offer myself that doesn't affect anybody else but me. So, as I said, comment below if that's something that you want to find that helps you, that, you know, just that little trajectory that gives you that ability to fill your own cup. But don't get to this point where you're just so overwhelmed that you can't see the forest for the trees. Take that ability to stand up for yourself, even if it causes conflict, so that you can regain your zeal and your passion and your enthusiasm for life. Okay? Have a great day, and put that tea in oh, that's another thing. I forgot to have my little cup of tea. I've got this mix of herbal tea that I've made for myself I call it Calm TF Down. I'm not going to swear on this channel because I want to be able to have kids watch it if I really need to. So here's cheers. Have a great week, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.